It all started suddenly, without any premonitions. The world was overtaken by fabulous creatures. According to scientific facts that were discovered later, there was a world similar to Earth in outer space. But because of the catastrophe that happened there, the whole world was blown to pieces, and its fragments flew to the ground in a hail. People could only watch the apocalypse taking place. Parts of the planet began to merge with the environment all over the planet, so the laws of nature of another world and various monsters appeared on Earth. Thus, approximately 17% of the Earth's surface has undergone changes in which humanity has lost ownership. This dangerous territory has been called dungeons. The monster that appeared in the face of the soldier is called Horned Horror. The stronger the monster, the more horns it has. The monster smelled the man and rushed to him because of all the forces. The frightened boy did not lose his temper and started firing at the monster, but the bullets did not have much effect and the horned one dealt a fatal blow to the man, thereby slamming him into a concrete wall. Even outstanding human abilities were not enough to resist these uninvited guests, but fortunately, the invasion of monsters from another world brought with it not only cataclysms. The innate limitations inherent in humans, and the limitations of potential inherent in the nature of the Earth have finally been lifted. And then people became able to fight back against the unknown. It affected all Earthlings, but everyone had their own skill. Those who stood out among the rest, with the help of training and hardening, learned to use their full potential. And when the monsters burst into the territory of people, they organized elite troops to reclaim their lands. These heroes began to be called hunters. Now the era of dungeons and hunters has come. The whole world was shuddering from their achievements and strength. Even before the end of one generation, schools were founded in which future hunters were brought up. The best educational school for teenagers, as well as an educational institution that has been producing successful hunters for 25 years, was the High School of Heroes, known all over the world. Currently, friends continue to talk among themselves. The fact is that these heroes are taking an exam in the dungeon. The black-haired one is interested in what if they die there, but apparently they are confident in their prospects, if they could do it. But their intellectual conversation is interrupted by the enthusiastic exclamations of classmates. They are trying to make out the handsome men on the carriage, namely the half-elf. From this sight, the black-haired man's face twisted. The bespectacled man hurries to explain the essence of the situation. This white-haired guy is often shown on TV and his name is Choi Dial. His father is a famous hunter, and his mother is an elf. They say he is a genius. He is predicted to have a career as a hunter in the top 5 rankers 5 years after graduation. At the moment, he is only 17 years old, and his number of raids is already about 14. But all this damn information angered the kid even more. At the moment when the black-haired man begins to come to conflict, the poor bespectacled man tries to change the subject and turns to Cha-ren and asks if he will go to karaoke. Lee Eun-jin called them there. However, the guy has a part-time job scheduled for today, and he kindly refuses such an offer by burying his face in his mobile phone. The bully tries to persuade his friend to go with them. Because the exams are over, he could have hung out with them for a day. But the bespectacled man, hearing his friend's nonsense, hits him in the liver and says goodbye to Cha-ren. After that, he asks the black-haired man to think first and then talk, because he knows what a sad situation is. At this moment, the above-mentioned boy reads an incoming message on his phone, namely that he did not pay hospital expenses for May and June. At this moment, the famous idol drew attention to the boy. His friend asked the walking kid touched him with something? But he said no, apparently it seemed to him. The black-haired man goes to work, but he does not want to work terribly. He descends into the abandoned and passes by the police tape. There he meets Jae-hwan. This is his broker, and customers are next to him. The guy is greeting others, but the customer is annoyed, because the smoking man promised to show the most capable. But the curly-haired man calmly explains that this guy is the most capable, but he does not believe such nonsense and brazenly asks to remove the little ones, otherwise he will break both legs right here. The black-haired guy is no longer going to listen to the indignation of the bald man and takes off his jacket, and also turns to the guard with the question, is he a hunter? Looking at him again, he realizes that this is no longer the case, because the hunter would not work for this half-finished uncle. The enraged lout sees no point in talking to the kid and decides to break his arms and legs. Then the boy will understand his mistakes. This guard's name is Lu Pil-gyu. He is now 34 years old, and his number of dungeon raids is 81 times. The kid looked at his boss, but he closed his eyes to everything that was happening and gave the go-ahead, and now this conflict can be solved with the help of force. The main character's name is Yu Cha-ren. At the moment he is 17 years old. He is a dungeon smuggler, and his number of raids is 371 pieces. A monstrous crime threatening the world. What is it, dungeon smuggling? Hunters are still trying very hard to clear the dungeon. If they successfully clear it and destroy monsters, they get a big reward. But before taking these pressure cookers outside, they need to be checked, because there are treasures among them that have great power, and if they find themselves outside without proper permission, they can be used for dangerous purposes. That is why such treasures must be checked and registered in the Hunters Association, and an appropriate tax is charged for them. But there are also those who violate this rule. They incite hunters who do not want to pay large taxes, and secretly take out treasures from the dungeons. If you don't catch them, chaos can ensue in society. Therefore, dear citizens, if you see these people, you should call the association as soon as possible. The bald man asks if the guy will interfere. But the smoker just laughs. Is the man scared? But that's not the point, because his guard is very irritable and he left the hunters not because of an injury, but because of the beating of a colleague. He does not look at age, he often had to clean up corpses after him. Cha-rin is surprised by the beating of a colleague. Yes, he is a real criminal, but it's not so important. The bully also announces that he was a pathetic freak who interfered with him, and he just got rid of the garbage. The guy didn't understand at first, and then how did he understand? So he got rid of garbage, so he knew perfectly well that he was garbage. That's why the bully beat his colleague on purpose to have his license revoked. The man got tired of listening to the nonsense of the boy and he struck a crushing blow, but the boy turned out to be not simple and Lego dodged this ridiculous blow. At the same time, the big guy completely loses his temper and pounces on a defenseless schoolboy. But then, he also decides to strike a light blow in response. The bald scoundrel's mouth opened in amazement, but the smoking boy was not surprised at all, because he promised to bring the most capable guy. Cha-rin is disappointed. It seemed to him that the bully would be tougher. Thus, only Lu Pilgyu received blows. The man did not understand what was going on, because he thought that some small kid was standing in front of him. But the reflexes of this kid and the force of the blow to the chin say the opposite. This kid is a real professional. Now something has begun to reach the man in the suit. This kid is not one of those who can be easily defeated in battle, but to shake Pilgyu with one kick is amazing. After all, in the past his personal guard was a tank, and now he decides to show the student his true strength. After merging, people have acquired skills that go beyond their borders. They all have different figures and abilities, which is why the skills are also different. The same applies to hunters. They have been training for a long time depending on their skills and everyone performs their role, and the so-called tanks specialize in protecting their team members from the dangers of dungeons. They go forward personally facing monsters. Their bodies are so trained that they are not even afraid of bullets. And in the case of top tanks, they could become a shield that could hold missiles of any power. These are the real hunters. At this moment, the furious bully strikes with two hands and destroys the ground around, but the guy manages to dodge. With this blow, the bully makes his boss lose his balance, and he almost falls to the ground, but the curly-haired boy manages to lift his customer. But still the smoker is annoyed, because the bully has destroyed their workroom. The battle continues and the kid has to dodge deadly blows. Smiling, the bully is interested in what is the matter. Why doesn't the kid show his abilities anymore? But the guy is not a fool and is not going to jump into a man's trap. The smoker, observing from the side, noticed that the physical force of destruction of the big guy is similar to an average truck. If such a one hits, it can crush all the bones. The boss orders Cha-rin to finish quickly, because if the bully blows something else, then his salary will be cut. But the big guy just laughs. Apparently the director of the black-haired guy does not understand what's what and offers the student to tell his boss that he is not able to defeat a professional. But Cha-rin just grinned at such a cheap provocation and picks up an iron stick from the floor with the words that this will be enough. Because of the excellent stamina and endurance, people used to think that tanks are not victorious. But this is far from the case. They have their own weaknesses and natural enemies, namely those who are able to concentrate a huge destructive force at one point. For example, a damage dealer whose skill exceeds the tank by several levels, as in this case. The boy strikes the most powerful blow and takes out a pathetic tank with a blow, after which he spits blood and falls to the ground. While still conscious, he asks in surprise where the kid learned this torsion technique, but the schoolboy denies the fact of its presence and says that it seemed to the man, but in fact it may not have seemed to him, because for sure he had already seen his father before. When Cha-rin was still a little boy, his father was the best hunter, But this is not because he was his father. The man's name was Yusong. This is the same military from the first generation of heroes, our very first hunters. For those who did not experience that horror personally, these people were legends that went down in history, but in fact those times can hardly be called hell for hunters. Firstly, at that time there was not enough information about what a dungeon was and what kind of monsters were found there. For example, the mollusk gecko, an immature individual, a monster that today does not seem particularly dangerous, for hunters of that time were comparable to an unknown disaster. They had neither the skills to fight monsters, nor normal items, and in such a nightmarish environment, the first generation of hunters risked their own lives, acting by trial and error. And those who survived gained experience and achievements for the sake of the next generations, so in the end they became heroes. And he drank a large amount of blood. The man became known as the Dragon Slayer Yusong. Such a nickname was given to the one who was the first among people to kill a winged monster. He was the #1 hunter in Asia. In this world, Chaoren respected and envied his father more than anyone else. He firmly believed that he would not win. But one day his father vomited blood from his mouth during training. And the cause of his illness turned out to be poison. While hunting in the dungeons, his father was poisoned and it was impossible to heal him. Despite his illness, he always tried to overcome this difficulty. But over all these years his physical condition has reached its limit. Even his colleagues, for whom his father risked his life, soon turned their backs on him and used his illness to appropriate all his achievements and possessions to themselves. So his father's physical and mental suffering continued for several years. When some time passed, the world began to forget the name of the Dragon Slayer Yusong. It was already impossible to see that image of the hero in it. He had lost everything he had and was suffering from an incurable disease, and now he was just a hero who had been forgotten by everyone. Chaoren turned away from the scouted opponent and did not listen to his nonsense. The bald man was surprised that his Pilgil lost to some green puppy, but the fact is that the bully was clearly not a good hunter, because after watching him brag about beating his colleague, you can immediately determine his low level. The guy explains that in this world there are only two reasons why good hunters retire. Either they are physically unable to continue working due to injuries, or they died during a raid. Also, the boy advises to fire this big guy if he demands money more than the lowest rate, because he is clearly not worth it. Curly turns to the client and warns him that now the fee for the service will be twice as high, because he was the first to bully them and through his fault the room was completely destroyed. Then the bald man realizes his situation and kindly agrees. The boss asks Chaoren if he has heard about the Heavenly Wasp. He choked on suddenness. Is he really going to have to fight with her? This is clearly too much, because the Heavenly Wasp, a monster that is known as the most dangerous monster, not only on the Korean peninsula, but all over the world. The abandoned area where the nest of Heavenly Wasps is located has turned into the zone with the highest level of difficulty in Korea. According to the smoker, it is difficult for rankers to cope with even one individual, and there are whole troops of such monsters, so for an ordinary smuggler, we can assume that there is no chance. But what if we are talking about a hunter of the white rank? If you believe the words of the bald uncle, a major raid took place yesterday, which was not covered in the news. The state supported the military. A team of 7 white rank hunters was assembled, so to speak, all Korean stars gathered, although only a couple should come and they are already shouting about it in all the newspapers. The purpose of such an elite squad was the destruction of wasps, but nothing happened. However, they managed to arrange a hunt for the uterus and one of the 7 special ones was able to appropriate the royal jelly of the heavenly wasps. He persuaded one of his people in the special squad and secretly took out this item. Chaoren asks what kind of jelly this is and the boss immediately explains to him that this royal jelly is a nutrient that the wasps fed the new uterus with. But then the black-haired man does not understand the meaning of such a large raid, for the sake of some nutrient. But everything is not so simple, because as far as we know, people who have eaten this substance were able to escape from the grip of death and return to life. These words shocked Chaoren, because that's what he needed more than anything in the world. All the nooks and crannies leading to the dungeons should be under strict control. This is the official position of the Hunters Association and the government. Of course, in fact, everything is not so. The smoker uses his extraordinary abilities and activates the mysterious door. He again warns his ward about the danger, especially this time, but Chaoren does not hear him. Then he exhales bitter smoke at the thoughtful kid and he immediately comes to his senses. The guy is a little outraged by the actions of his boss, but it seemed to him that the kid was thinking about something completely different and did not hear the parting words of his senior. Is this really all because of this? A potion capable of reviving a dead man. It seems these words do not give rest to the boy, but the black-haired one waves it off, because what difference does it make to him or not? Because it is clear to a fool that the properties of the nutrient are clearly exaggerated. Opening the door, he calms himself, because even if it is a medicine that has no equal, it still will not be able to heal his father, because if there was at least some way, he would never have lost a thread of hope. Opening the doors, the sun's rays fell on Cha Ren's face. After merging, different dungeons appeared all over the earth. Among them, the largest in Korea were, the first where Jeju Island merged with a volcano, and the second where the Igarian jungle merged with part of the area in Seoul. This huge dungeon has not yet been cleared. Many hunters have said goodbye to their lives in it. One of the smuggler's people delivered the goods to the meeting place. Apparently the connection was cut off when he arrived there. In the end he took the goods for himself. Perhaps he was injured or got into some kind of trouble. The smoker assumed that the man was most likely injured by heavenly wasps while he was running away. Cha Ren's task is to check the place of events and bring the goods, if there is one there. Curly also warns the boy that stop thinking about strange things. It's better for him to focus on his work. Then the black-haired one asks that his boss is afraid that he will run away with the subject? However, the smoker does not worry about this, because Cha Ren is not such a fool to make such a stupid mistake. He just really asks the boy to be careful, because the royal jelly of heavenly wasps is a very expensive thing. Not only people hunt for this thing. Jumping into the forest, he realizes that it is quite possible that this place is already filled with a sweet smell, and his assumption is absolutely correct, because different monsters are going to this smell. The forest is alarmed. A breathless girl is trying to quickly escape from the place of the incident, and soon she hides behind a tree and tries to hide her heavy breathing. This girl's name is Chin Se-rem. She studies at the High School of Heroes, and now she is in the most terrible situation in her entire life. She thought that the midterm exams for first-year students would be easy, but something appeared in front of her. A monster that shouldn't be in this place. The exam was originally quite simple. It was necessary to collect as many coins as possible, which were hidden in different corners of the dungeon. It was a normal practical exam, and the difficulty level in the exam area was at the lowest level. We can say that this is a hunting place for beginners. And the monsters who were weak and had almost no intelligence. But now everything is different. Frightened, she wanted to escape with all her heart, and if this girl has a chance to survive, it's closer to a miracle. But despite this, she decided to fight to the end. Her opponent is a Titan monkey, an immature individual. The danger level is 3 stars. Se-ram launches steel arrows at the mutants, but the monster calmly accepts this attack with his hand. For him it feels like a mosquito bit. The girl understands that the strength of the hide of this monster is higher than that of an armored car. And while she was thinking about further strategy, the giant decided to launch his crushing attack, but the girl managed to jump high from this place into the air. And although the woman knows that she will never break through the skin of this monster, she continues to fire. But as expected, this crazy giant has nothing to do. Her attacks do not work for him. This monster does not even need to dodge or block arrows, and then the girl decides to take a desperate step, namely to get closer so that her crazy opponent becomes less protected. Chin Se-rem can apply magic to the tips of her arrows. She is an archer magician. Having prepared herself, the girl uses the ability, Fire Attack. The types of magic that she can put into arrows are endless and have no boundaries, and for a pure victory she chose Explosion. Having invested maximum strength and power there, such a blow completely affects monsters with a 3-star danger level, but this concerns a situation when you hit the target exactly. The mad monster jumped to the ground and chased after the frightened and defenseless elf, but at that moment he appeared a mysterious hero in a mask.